Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Philip Lynch. I'm the Director of Special Education for Montgomery County Public Schools. I want to introduce you to a couple of my colleagues, and then we'll have the co-chairs introduce themselves. First, I want to introduce our Associate Superintendent, Dr. Gwendolyn Mason. Gwen, if you want to say good evening.
It's good evening, everyone. Glad to be with you tonight.
Okay, and if we have other MCPS supervisors, I saw Dr. Ives, and we have our presenters for this evening. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves? That way we have a name with a face when I go through the agenda. So Dr. Ives, you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll hear from our presenters, and then any other supervisors that we have could go ahead and introduce themselves.
Sure. Hi, good evening. Dr. Sandy Ives, Supervisor, Social Emotional Special Education Services.
All right, Anne-Marie.
Hi, good evening. My name is Anne-Marie Tagliaferri, and I'm the supervisor for the Alternate Learning Outcome Programs and Services.
And Sarah, are you in here, Sarah Jackson?
Hi, I'm Sarah Jackson. I'm the Twice Exceptional Instructional Specialist for MCPS.
Okay, and so at this point, I want to turn it over to our co-chairs, and I'll just give it a little order. So why don't we start with Victoria, Connie, and then Amy. Why don't we go in that order, and you can introduce yourselves.
Yes, hi everybody, welcome to the meeting. Thank you everybody for attending. My name is Victoria Yellow, and I am a child at BE Special Ed. I also want to thank everybody and the presenters tonight and welcome them. And I also want just to say that our email addresses for the co-chairs are on the SEAC website, and you can reach out for every time you need to reach out. If you have any concerns or anything you wanna just talk about, feel free. Just Google SEAC, MCPS SEAC, and you can find our contact information. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Connie Nepomuceno. I have a son on the Asperger's program. He's in 4th grade, and I have a daughter in 1st grade. I've been attending this meeting since my son was 3.5 years old when he was in PEP program. I learned something from every single meeting. So I want to welcome to any parent who is new. And I want to let everybody know that we'll be having a parent networking at the end of the event. And this is a chance for parents to connect with each other. And with that said, I'm going to pass it to Amy.
Hey everyone, it's nice to see you all. I'm Amy Bloom. I also have 2 boys at Bethesda Elementary. My 5th grader receives special education, and I was almost late to this meeting because of a meltdown we were having, and I reminded myself that it would be okay, because if ever there was a community that got what that was like, it's this one. So there was some comfort in coming and motivating myself to be here. So I guess just thank you to all of you. So that's all.
So glad you were able to work through that, at least to be here for a bit. So I did see that my fellow director, Amy Kropp, is here, and if we could have Amy introduce herself, and we have our wonderful instructional specialists, Mary Rose and Jennifer Struble, who's my instructional specialist. So if you three could introduce yourselves, and I saw Rachel Macerana. Why don't you introduce yourself, Rachel? It's good for folks to connect with who you are.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Amy Kropp. I'm the Director of Pre-K Special Programs and Related Services.
Mary Rose.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Rose Kachina. I'm the Instructional Specialist for the Division of Pre-K Special Programs and Related Services.
Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen Strobel, Instructional Specialist. It's good to see everybody here tonight.
Rachel, you want to say hello?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. My name is Rachel Matrona. I'm an Instructional Specialist in the Resolution and Compliance Office. And I usually hang in here just because I like to learn like the rest of you all. So thank you.
Thank you for being here, Rachel. So I will go over a few administrative pieces first. We have an interpreter who is available for interpretation in Spanish. If you need interpretation in Spanish, and I'm going to ask Connie or our interpreter to repeat this in a minute, but can access those services by clicking the globe in the lower right portion and selecting the Spanish option. So I'll give our interpreter a moment to share that information. In fact, he may not be able to, he has to, I think, sit where he is. So Connie, if you wouldn't mind sharing that.
Sure. Of course.
you.
Bienvenidas a todas las familias que hablan español. Muchas gracias por estar con nosotros esta noche y por participar de este evento. Queríamos hacerles saber de que estamos proviendo interpretación si es que lo necesita. Necesita ir para la parte de Zoom en donde está una opción de interpretación y ahí selecciona el lenguaje y hay un interpretador en donde va a estar dando interpretación actual. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Connie. And if you need access to closed caption, there's the CC live transcript button at the bottom as well. So you can access that. So I'm going to talk a little about our agenda and then share what the format will look like this evening. Before I do that, I do want to make it clear that when we build these agendas, we do that with the input from our SEAC co-chairs who are getting input from all of you. So we're fortunate to have our collaboration time. We do know that you all take that time to share your interests and your feedback regarding these meetings with our co-chairs at that time, and it's very much appreciated. They then turn around and meet with myself and our other staff members in MCPS to make sure that we're providing you with a meaningful experience during these meetings. One of the things they did share to us is that they would like to have these meetings focus on some areas of interest. And one of the challenges that we have with this format is it doesn't lend itself well to really having a more in-depth conversation with the presenter. So we tried to come up with a format this evening that is going to be presenting 3 topics to you in the recent tradition of having some of our partners, our community partners share with us. Brooke Levy is going to be sharing information. Brooke is the executive director for the Down Syndrome Network, Montgomery County. And she's going to be sharing some information with you about the Down Syndrome Network. She's going to start off with a presentation around the Down Syndrome Network. We're then going to hear from our supervisor for students working towards ultimate learning outcomes, Anne-Marie Tagliaferri. She's going to share with you some information about the process that is involved in determining whether students are appropriately receiving instruction using the alternative learning outcomes, as well as the process for determining assessments, the appropriate assessment for students, and looking at some of the curriculum and curriculum resources that we use to support our students in order to access the curriculum. So she's going to share that information with you. And then we're going to hear from Sarah Jackson, who is our instructional specialist in our curriculum office, who supports our GTLD and twice exceptional students. She's going to share information about those services and the related services consults and whatnot that she provides as well. So you're going to hear 20 minutes from these experts, and then you will have an option or an opportunity to go into the breakout rooms. If you look on the lower right, there is a set of 4 cubes in the bottom right that says breakout rooms. If you were to select that later on when the time comes, you can select the breakout room in which you want to go into for 20 minutes to hear more from Brooke about the Down Syndrome Network and to dialogue with Brooke about the Down Syndrome Network. If you want a deeper dive into the information regarding our services for students with ultimate learning outcomes, the curriculum resources, the identification process, then you can select that. Or if you want to hear more about the GTLD twice exceptional services, you can select that. You also can go between breakout rooms if you want to go back to that icon and choose a different room after you feel like you've heard what you want to hear and you want to move around. You're welcome to do that as well. So that's the way it's structured this evening. We have these 3 experts who are going to present to you, and then you'll have an opportunity to hear more detailed information and interact with them in terms of questions and answers in the breakout sessions. And then we will move into our participant networking. SEAC co-chairs, I don't think we have any public comment this evening. Is that right? Okay, I will just make the public announcement that that this is an opportunity at the beginning of every monthly SEAC meeting for you to make public comment. Public comment can be used for commendations. We hear from folks who want to give a shout out or praise for something that Montgomery County is doing well and that they would like to maybe see spread further across other schools. We also hear concerns. And if you have an opportunity where you want to share public comment, we ask that you reach out and connect with one of our SEAC co-chairs so they can make sure that we are prepared to introduce you and that we have the information. We sometimes attempt to respond when we can during the meeting, but many times we need to look into your concern and follow up with you privately, which is why we need to connect with you to make sure we have your contact information. So that's enough for that piece. One last announcement before we move into our agenda, and that's in reference to, and I'm saying this now because I don't want to lose folks at the end and then not have folks hear this. Our December SEAC meeting will not be on the fourth Thursday. Our December meeting will not be on the fourth Thursday. It is on the 20th, which is a Monday. And the reason that is different is, and this has become again an annual tradition, is that we are going to be hearing from our superintendent, our acting superintendent, Dr. Monifa McKnight. And so this has become an annual tradition, and she has made herself available on that evening to make remarks and to be able to hear from you all. And we will have a format by which you can ask her questions. She will rely on us in the room to respond to questions that she may need us to provide more information or details on. But we hope that all of you can make that evening a meeting on December 20th. Jem, would you like to make an announcement for us? That I see you're sending me something here that is a commendation for somebody who's one of our presenters. No?
No, thank you though.
Okay. All right. So I will, when I introduce that person, I will share that information. How about that? Okay. So we'll start off with Brooke. If you could take us to the presentation, we'll jump in right away and get started with Brooke's presentation. Take it away, Brooke.
Thanks, Phil, for allowing me to give a presentation today. So hello, I'm excited to be here this evening. I'm the Executive Director of the Down Syndrome Network of Montgomery County. My name is, as you can see, Brooke Levy, and I am also the mother of three. One who's already been through MCPS and two who are currently in middle and high school. My youngest who receives special education services at Dr. Martin Luther King Middle School. You can go to the next slide, please. So while it's called the Down Syndrome Network of Montgomery County, we do serve also families who have loved ones with other intellectual and developmental disabilities. We serve families, we provide lifespan programming, so from birth to adulthood. So while our priority is families with who have children and adults with Down syndrome, we are happy to include those families who have children and adults with other disabilities as well. Next slide, please. So our mission for the Down Syndrome Network is to empower and support individuals with Down syndrome, their families, and the community through education, information, public awareness, and advocacy. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this tonight and what we offer to families in the region. Our vision is to be a comprehensive resource on Down syndrome in the Washington, D.C. metro area. We envision a community where all people with Down syndrome can achieve their full potential and where individuals with Down syndrome and their families are welcome with fairness and enthusiasm and encouragement in the community. Next slide, please. So before I get started and talking about these programs, I have about a 4-minute video that gives a introduction and shares with you about some of our families. And this, you may recognize, some of you may recognize some of the people in this video. And we will be actually even updating it within the next few months. So please go ahead and start the video, Derek.
We don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words won't cut me down, I'm gonna send a flag, gonna drown him out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me. Another round of bullets hits my skin. I'll fire away, 'cause today I won't let the shame sink in. We are bursting through the barricades and reaching for the sun. Yeah, that's what we become. I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us. For your glory. When the sharp swords won't cut me down, I'm gonna send a flag, gonna drown him out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me. This is me. And I know that I just want you. 'Cause there's nothing when the sharp sparks will cut me down, I'm gonna send a flag, gonna drown him out. This is brave, this is bruised, this is who I'm meant to be. This is me. 'Cause here I come. Yeah, 'cause here I come. This is me.
So you probably saw Phil Lynch in there because we have had a long relationship with MCPS, and we have collaborated on many projects, and we've worked together for many years. So the Down Syndrome Network of Montgomery County has been around from the mid-'80s, and it was developed by nothing unusual, but a bunch of moms who didn't have a support group, who had children with Down syndrome. And since then, we've grown into a much larger organization. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we are supporting many, many families within the region, within MCPS, outside of MCPS, in the community, again, from birth to adulthood. We recently conducted a strategic plan, and you see in front of you 4 of the priorities that we came up with. We will be looking at everything we have in print, online, and updating to make sure that all of our programs fit within our priorities, but also reflect the community in which we live. We are going to be developing a new program with IEP supports for families, because there's so many families that are constantly asking questions. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. And then of course, lifespan programming, and we are updating our new family outreach, because often we are the first organization that a family speaks to after their child is born with Down syndrome. Next slide, please. So DSNMC offers a variety of programs, services, and resources and advocacy to best meet the needs of our members and families. And these are some of our major programs that we and events that we have within the Down Syndrome Network of Montgomery County. Next slide, please. So with the new family outreach, like I said, we are often the first people that are called. The hospital will call us. We have welcome bags at hospitals and relationship with hospitals in the area. And they call the social workers, whoever is in charge of the welcome baskets there, call us to let us know that there's a family. And then if we have permission from the family to reach out, we do that, or they'll reach out to us. We have welcome baskets that all families receive free of charge. We give them one-on-one support with phone calls, visits, bring dinners. And then we're also developing a new parent mentor program so that these families have even greater support. And you're seeing here one of our newest families who was recently at one of our events this fall. And then we also have new family gatherings where the families can meet each other over a breakfast. Obviously, recently in the last couple of years, we haven't been able to do that because of the pandemic. However, we do try to connect families with each other so that they feel supported as new parents of a child with Down syndrome. Okay, next slide, please. So lifespan programming is a huge part of the Down Syndrome Network of Montgomery County. We provide, it's an opportunity for us to help families through navigate lives with their loved ones through from birth to adulthood. And you can see here these families right here who are still involved with our family. You know, some of these adults here have been involved with the Down Syndrome Network of Montgomery County from its inception in the 80s. And so you can see, and they're still involved. So next slide, please. So there's a couple of programs that that I'd like to share with you. We have the Teen Hangout and Art Stream, and I'm just going to highlight. We have lots of programs, but these programs I feel might be truly interesting to you. We have a Teen Hangout that meets every Thursday at 6:30. And it's for teens who have Down syndrome. However, we would likely be open to adding on some kids who are interested in joining this group who don't have Down syndrome, but do have a developmental or intellectual disability. And this group is led by an adult who has Down syndrome, who's contracted with us. And you can see him here is Adrian, who's the one in the red shirt on the picture. And he, along with his job coach, comes up with the curriculum, they create the flyers, and then they engage the students weekly so that they can stay connected during COVID. And they will, of course, go back to meeting in person as soon as all of the families feel it's safe. And so that's just one of them. So they build on social skills. They learn how to interact with each other and do activities, fun activities that help them learn those skills. The Art Stream workshops, we've had Art Stream workshops all the way from middle school, high school, and then young adults. And those workshops also teach about social skills, and it's done through the theater arts. So we hire Art Stream teachers, and Art Stream is a nonprofit here in Montgomery County. And we contract with them, and they do these amazing programs for our members with Down syndrome, middle school through adulthood, and bring theater arts into their lives and teach important communication skills. And in this one, I don't know, I mean, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Step Up for Down Syndrome celebration in a few minutes, but this is where they develop their speeches, and they give speeches annually to our network or anyone who comes to our celebration. All right, next slide, please. So over the pandemic, we really upped our game with parent workshops, because we felt like there were so many questions, there was so much stress and anxiety about the pandemic, and we weren't able to meet in person and have these conversations in person through our usual parent meetings that were in person. And so what we did was we wrote a grant and received a grant from Tribute 21, and we created a speaker series, and we had all kinds of topics. And you'll see some of these, we're partnering with MCPS on transitioning from infants and toddlers to MCPS pre-K special education services, and transitioning from PEP to kindergarten as well. We also, as you can see here, provided, I guess, presentations on, ABLE accounts, how to set them up, futures planning, what do we have to plan for? And all of these workshops were open to any parent who had a loved one with a intellectual or developmental disability, and they were free of charge. We just asked that people registered. And we will be coming up and advertising our 2022 speakers within the next month, and I'll make sure the SEAC leadership gets that information so that they can share it with you. Next slide, please. So we have a lot of parent and guardian support. We have many opportunities. For example, our listserv. We have a listserv, which is a place for families so that they may ask questions. It's kind of like a crowdsource opportunity, where if somebody's looking for a doctor or the best eye doctor, or where can I get a consultation on orthodontics and braces, or just have general questions. Oh my gosh, my kid is having such a hard time transitioning back into school, and there's all these behaviors that I'm not recognizing. What do I do? And it's a very safe environment. We have strict rules about how positive feedback in our network. And so it's a great place for parents to connect with each other, but also get information and get support in a safe place and welcoming place. So during the pandemic, we also offered lots of virtual programs for parents to network. Normally we would be able to, like I said earlier, gather. We would have, cocktail hours, we would have play groups, we would have breakfasts, just kind of a hangout for parents to come meet up. And we weren't able to do that, so we did them on Zoom. We had, mom's night in, or dads and drinks from a distance. We were coming up with some funny names, but it's a way for parents to get the support, ask the questions, and hear from other parents who may have had similar experiences, who can offer suggestions. Our newest priority, and currently under development, is to offer IEP support to parents through workshops, a mentor program, and possibly direct support. We have a lot of parents who are not necessarily from the United States, who either have language barriers or cultural barriers, and are just not clear on the topic, no matter how many workshops they go to and learn about it through, I know MCPS offers lots of workshops and information about how IEPs, the process of the IEPs, and then we're trying to do that as well. And so we're trying to provide extra support through our network for those families who are seeking that kind of support. Next slide, please. We also have a Grupo Latino. This group was started a few years ago because we have so many families, Spanish-speaking families in Montgomery County. In fact, the Grupo Latino has about 60 families, maybe even more at this point, who are part of the Grupo Latino, and they meet monthly. Sometimes the meetings are just to hang out and talk and ask questions in Spanish. And sometimes we bring in speakers from Children's Hospital to talk about COVID-19, or to talk about medical issues or any other issues that the parents might be interested in. This group is led by one of our board members, and who is Spanish speaking and part of the community. And we are growing this group. We also have lots of social groups or social events that this group organizes, some during the summer, where they meet at a park or meet at a splash park, have picnics, get together and share food and their personal and professional experiences. They also have a big holiday every year, which is coming, a holiday celebration every year. Unfortunately, this year it's going to be virtual, but in general, it's been in person, and they invite our whole network to this group party. Okay, next slide, please. So when people think about a Down Syndrome Association, they often think of the Buddy Walk. And we don't do the Buddy Walk anymore here. We used to do the Buddy Walk in Montgomery County, but we now do the Step Up for Down Syndrome celebration and fundraiser. The Buddy Walk was also a fundraiser. It's our largest fundraiser of the year. However, it is it's twofold. It's not just a fundraiser, it's also a huge celebration of the abilities of our member families. And like the Buddy Walk, this is our largest annual event, and that brings in over 700 people when we're in person. We've in general held this in October at Hadley's Park, and hope to do that again in 2022. We this year and last year hosted a car parade, which was very successful. We had a DJ, and you can see in some of these pictures, people did not stay in their cars because they were so excited to see each other. Of course, most of these pictures where people are not in the cars, not the walk, but the other photographs were clearly, it's not a walk. They got out, they had already been vaccinated, except for maybe some of the tiny ones. And you can see Mrs. Strobel and Mr. Lynch here in their Step Up for Down Syndrome shirts, and with their pom-poms cheering everybody on as they're driving by. So anyway, fingers crossed, we can do this again next year, but this is a wonderful event that I would encourage anybody to come to. It's where our self-advocate gives speeches. We thank our community partners. We thank our sponsors. We have all kinds of fun activities like face painting and bouncy houses and all kinds of inflatables. And we bring in networking opportunities. So we'll have tables and chairs set up with exhibits from local organizations that support people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Okay, next slide, please. Other social events that we have are, you can see here, we have picnics, we have play groups, we have Easter egg hunts. We celebrate sometimes by going out to dinner for World Down Syndrome Day. We get tickets to the Nationals games. We have pool parties, and we have our winter dance, which is very popular. And so all of these events have been virtual this last year and a half, but hopefully we will be going in person starting next year. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to let everybody know we have an amazing partnership with Friends of Frederick County and the Chesapeake Down Syndrome Parent Group over in Baltimore County. And we collaborate on different projects, but we collaborate and put together Techniques for Success conference and this year we're doing it virtually. And this weekend is the last presenter, Dr. Dan Shapiro. We also had Dr. Kaya and Dr. Sean Smith who spoke this year, but this is our premier education conference, and it supports inclusion, equity, and success of students with Down syndrome and other intellectual disability and developmental disabilities. And it's an amazing event for both educators and parents. And I highly recommend hopefully next year will be in person, or maybe it'll be a hybrid program, but that you attend and take part in this amazing conference. And I know that Dr. Mason and Mr. Lynch are giving the welcome this Saturday in a pre-recorded video for this event. So it's been a great partnership with MCPS as well. Next slide, please. So we also do advocacy and develop partnerships in Maryland and Montgomery County and the DC region. We advocate for our members at the state and local levels in collaboration with the Maryland Down Syndrome Advocacy Coalition, which is a group of amazing organizations working towards making sure that people with Down syndrome are treated with equity and just like anybody else, anybody else in the state of Maryland. We also work cooperatively with MCPS administration to address issues related to students with Down syndrome and other intellectual and developmental disabilities. We meet often to talk about how we can work together and give suggestions for what we could all be doing better so that we can improve on programming and what we can offer families and students. Next slide, please. So this is the end. We have lots of resources. Our website, which is just dsnmc.org. We have a member listserv, member newsletter. We have a Facebook page, and I can put my email in the chat as well if you're interested in connecting. But we have lots of resources for families, and I would be happy to connect with you all. So thank you so much for having me. The SEAC group has been a great support over the years. My daughter, who has Down syndrome, is 13, and on and off, I've been coming to meetings since she was little tiny. And so thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you, Brooke. And you've been a great support to us. And I'm not just saying that to be nice. We really have relied a lot on input from the Down Syndrome Network to help make us better. And so we really appreciate you sharing that information. You need to keep that organization strong and keep the collaboration strong, because we have really relied on your input to help improve our services for all students with disabilities. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Anne-Marie Tagliaferri. Anne-Marie could give us a 3-credit course on the topic that she's going to be discussing this evening, but I'm going to tell her that she has 20 minutes. So you've got till 8 o'clock, Anne-Marie. I'll shoot you a 2-minute warning if you're running behind. Okay. All right. Take it away.
All right. Thank you, Phil. And I did set my timer because I truly could, and I do enjoy speaking on this topic. And thank you, Brooke, for your presentation on the Down Syndrome Network. My heart is feeling very full and happy from seeing those beautiful faces, especially some of the friends that I know that were in the video. So tonight we're going to take some time to talk about our alternate learning outcomes. We're going to start the conversation by going through some of the pieces of the IEP, and then I'm going to talk about what the practical sort of application looks like in the classroom as we've aligned the instruction to the grade level standards. So just to start, what are the alternate learning outcomes? You may also hear the acronym ALO that we often refer to. Sometimes you might even hear AOL or AOL, which sometimes gets mistaken and brings us back to the 90s. But it's the alternate learning outcomes are the learning standards that align to grade level standards through our curriculum modifications and specially designed instructional strategies that are described in the students' IEPs. So we have to begin at the eligibility. This is one of our first pages in the IEP. And in eligibility, as you know, we're talking about whether the student is eligible for special education services. And in order to do so, we're really looking at 3 main areas: cognitive, achievement, and different adaptive measures. And for our students who are typically pursuing alternate learning outcomes, we'll look at a variety of cognitive measures. Sometimes we use the WISC, which can be used for all of our students. We may use the Kaufman. We also very often will use nonverbal measures. Some examples of those are the LITER or the TONY, which is the test of nonverbal intelligence. We're also going to look at achievement, and the achievement, we have some standardized measures as well. We have the Woodcock-Johnson, which you may hear at IEP meetings as the WJ. We also oftentimes use the Bergantz. For achievement though, we know that some of our learners do have difficulty accessing these. So we also rely heavily on some of our informal data collection that we take in our classrooms. An important piece when determining if our students are going to pursue alternate learning outcomes are those adaptives. And so really looking at the daily living skills of our students. And there are different scales, but what you may commonly see in some of the reports, the school psychologist, always ask for parent guardian input as well, but you may participate in the Vineland Adaptive Behavior Rating Scales. There's also the Adaptive Behavior Assessment System, the ABOS that you may hear about. But the other pieces that are going to be important in all of those, again, is the observation of the student, always a record review, seeing how the student has progressed over time, and some of those informal measures. And our students who oftentimes end up pursuing alternate learning outcomes fall into a couple of disability description areas. Very commonly, it's intellectual disabilities, also autism, and then multiple disabilities. And that oftentimes is a combination of perhaps an intellectual disability in combination with traumatic brain injury or ADHD. And so there's certainly a wide variety, but those are some of our most common. So after we go through the eligibility, you're going to find the student participation on district statewide assessments and graduation information. And I realized that this page of the IEP has a lot of text on it and can be a little bit difficult to decipher at times. So here's the entire page. And I am going to, on the next slide, pull out two important pieces when we're having conversations about alternate learning outcomes. Okay, so this really comes into that participation planning piece. And so in these discussions, the conversations and the outcomes of the participation planning really needs to align with the data in the students' present levels of performance. And we know that in our students' levels of performance, we are really looking at what the student is currently able to do, the strengths of that student, and the needs of the student. And we're looking to find, or for that data in a variety, or using a variety of tools, and not just one. You'll see here, and let me just make this a little bit bigger for myself for a moment. The first piece is talking about the students in terms of their participation in the alternate assessment. And it talks about using the guidance or Appendix A to guide the IEP teams. And that's what we're going to talk about next. The second piece of that is planning for the participation in instruction using the alternate standards. Again, we're going to use Appendix A to guide that discussion. And then later on in the presentation, and if we end up running short on time, I really will highlight that in our breakout room, but how we use those alternate standards based on our grade level standards. Oops, sorry about that. There is another piece that I do want to highlight that, if, for example, there's data to support that a student is unable to possibly successfully work towards those grade level standards, even when they've been provided the specially designed instruction with evidence-based practices, accommodations, and program modifications. If the family or the parent does not consent, then the school team is obligated to base the student's instruction on those grade level standards. And again, a little later on in the presentation, we'll take a little deeper look into what those grade level standards could look like. So I referenced Appendix A, which is also referenced on the participation planning page of the IEP. So I am going to, after I finish the presentation, I'll put into the chat a document that's the guidance for the IEP teams and guidance for families around Appendix A. But Appendix A is a tool that outlines the steps that the IEP team must take in determining whether the alternate assessments and/or alternate instructional standards are appropriate for students. In this tool, we take time to review the students' educational records, including their most recent psychological, educational, and adaptive assessments. We take a look at the student's present level of performance. We take a look at also work samples, and there's a wide variety of other items that we may look for that I'd be happy to talk through more in the breakout room. At the end of the process, each team member is able to sign whether they agree or they disagree that the student meets this criteria. And if a member of the school team or if a member of anyone on the IEP team disagrees with this decision, that is documented on this form, and it's also documented in the prior written notice. I do want to emphasize that this form is not asking permission or consent to alternate instruction and assessments. That is going to come in just a minute when we talk about the model parental consent. Another item that is very important to highlight, that this also is not to determine a student's placement. This tool is to be used to determine if the student is eligible for instruction and assessment using our alternate standards. So when you go through the Appendix A, it initially starts by every member of the IEP team signing that they were there present for this conversation. And then the second, and one of the most critical pieces, is that parent-guardian understanding. And so we have one piece about the alternate standards and a diploma, and then the second about how the decision is going to be made annually. But in the first item, I do want to highlight that the alternate standards will not prepare him or her to meet the diploma. And this is the language that you can find right here. Well, I'm using my cursor, but I'm not showing my screen, so I apologize. But it's very important to note that this decision is made annually. So at every single annual review, you'll be going through this extensive process of using the Appendix A to determine if this continues to be the most appropriate track for your child. So again, it brings us back to the participation page in the IEP, and that's where it's going to be documented that we've had this conversation, and then we're going to document the parental consent. So parents and guardians do have the option to consenting to whether they would like their student accessing alternate standards and being assessed using alternate assessments. Now, I will also, in the slide or the link that I will put in the chat, there will be a full version of the model parental consent if it's a form that you have not seen. And so here, the school team can propose one, two, or both of these items. And the first one is that the student, if they're determined eligible for participation, do not provide credits towards a high school diploma. And the second is that an IEP team may propose that their child is or has qualified to take the alternate assessments aligned, or the assessments aligned with our alternate standards. I'm sorry, I hear a noise in my house. And so the IEP team can propose this, and if a parent or guardian is able to agree or disagree, and that is a portion of the consent that I will go through again in the breakout room. It's important to know that the parent does have 15 days to return the signed form if they do not sign at the meeting. IEP teams understand that this is a very big decision, and families often need time to really think about it. So you have 15 days to return it, and the parent response can be entered into the IEP even after it's closed. And that response will be documented in the IEP on what I showed in the prior slide. It's also going to be something that is documented in the prior written notice. Again, I do want to emphasize that this form and discussion are not asking for consent for placement. This form and discussion are only about instruction and assessment, not a particular special education program. That discussion about the specific special education program should come during the LRE, or the least restrictive environment discussion. So this graphic is a process for planning for our students that are pursuing AL or alternate learning outcomes and how we align them to the Common Core state standards. So if you look starting at the top left, we always start at that grade level standard, which is the Common Core state standard or the Maryland Career and College Readiness Standard. And that is language that you will hear if you go through the Appendix A with your school team. And here is when the teacher, a special education teacher, possibly the general education teacher, are really looking at, what grade level the child is and perhaps what modifications need to be made. So as you move over to the top right, we're really going to then spend some time going through, thank you, Derek, the alternate standards. And our alternate standards are aligned to our grade levels. We call these our essential elements or the core content connectors. And you'll see that in the next slide, a better visual to describe that. In the bottom left, in the bottom right, we're going to go clockwise. In the bottom right, we're really going to look at the acceptable evidence of learning and the appropriate supports and accommodation that a child is going to need to access the alternate standards that have been decided upon. And then lastly, we're going to lesson plan and really create instruction that is going to meet the student's instructional level and bring into that instruction the students' appropriate supplementary aids and services and the accommodations that they may require. And we have quite a few evidence-based instructional strategies and curriculum resources that are used during this process. And I will go over some of those resources at the end of my presentation. So here we are where we're really breaking down the standard. This is an example of fourth grade math. And here in the second column, you can see the Common Core state standard, then how it's broken down into its essential elements, and then finally into the linkage levels. And we'll go through this just for a moment. So here, the Common Core state standard for a fourth grader is that they're going to solve multi-step word problems posed with whole numbers and having whole number answers using 4 operations. And I won't continue reading the whole thing. The essential element really pulls out the important sort of foundational pieces of that that would be accessible to some of our students. And so the essential element for this standard would be to solve one-step real-world problems using addition or subtraction within 100. And we know that for some of our learners, even that standard may be difficult to reach. So then we can look at the linkage levels. And these are some of those precursor skills that are required for a student to even reach that essential element. And so here we might be looking at combining sets. I would even maybe back it down a little bit. We might just be counting with one-to-one correspondence, then creating sets, possibly with visuals, possibly not. But then taking those sets and combining them or breaking them down in order to solve addition or subtraction problems. But again, we might need to break it down to these levels for some of our students. And those oftentimes are what you would find in IEP goals or objectives. So I briefly wanted to go through the curriculum resources that we have available to us in MCPS. And so, first and foremost, we have our curriculum resources that are used with the vast majority of our students. They may be names that are familiar to you. The Eureka Math, Benchmark for elementary, StudySync, and LearnZillion for our secondary. And so these are the typical sort of general education curriculums that are used for our students. But there's many talented people in MCPS that have taken time to break down these curricular resources to meet the needs of many of our students who are pursuing alternate learning outcomes. And you actually I should have mentioned it, but in the prior slide, you saw an example of that. That was a broken down Eureka Math module and planning document for teachers to use. We also have a number of specially designed curriculum resources for our teachers and students to use. We have unique learning systems, which you may be familiar with if you have a student accessing our alternate learning outcomes. We also have many different resources from the Attainment Company. The Attainment Company modifies the standards in, algebra, some of the higher level, other math concepts. They also have writing tools that we can use for students. And they also have quite a number of transition and vocational support tools. Something that we're excited to be doing in this first semester this year is a pilot of 2 new curricular resources, one being Readtopia and the second being Adapted Classics. During the breakout room session, I'm happy to break down more pieces of the Appendix A, go more in depth on how we modify those, or how we adapt and modify the grade level standards to meet the needs of our students, and go through any of the curriculum resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. And I saw some folks who were asking questions in the chat, and you can certainly follow up with Anne-Marie in the breakout sessions when we get to that portion of the presentations. We have one more person to hear from, and then you'll have an opportunity to jump in those sessions. And if you have questions that Anne-Marie is unable to answer, you can certainly have her forward those to myself, and I will work on responding to those. One question was, how many students we have in Montgomery County working towards alternate learning outcomes, and I certainly know a rough number, but I don't want to give you something that's not accurate. So I will follow up on that number and get back to you, Stephanie, with that information. But I just need to do a quick track on our current state around that. So let me look into that. So I want to take a minute to introduce to you Sarah Jackson. And Sarah was recently received a recognition here. She won an award from the National Association for Gifted Children of Special Populations from the My 2E work, from her 2E work, and she's going to be presenting her information from you about what those services look like for you and your families here in Montgomery County this evening. So Sarah, why don't you take it away? You have let's see, you have until 8:20 there, Sarah, and I'll give you a 2-minute warning if you need it. Take it away.
Thanks, Phil. I know I talk too much, so I actually carved this down way much, so we have more time in breakout rooms. So hi, I am Sarah Jackson. I am the Twice Exceptional Instructional Specialist for MCPS, and I live actually in our curriculum office in accelerated and enriched instruction, but I am also a special education teacher, and I spend a lot of time hanging out with our special education friends. And so we're going to look today at the continuum of services that we offer for our Twice Exceptional students. If you want to go to the next slide. So this is to remind me, this is the whole group picture. So this is a really big picture of what we offer in MCPS. If you want to go next slide. So first I'd like to present us with kind of 2 operational definitions of what Twice Exceptional means. In MCPS, we describe Twice Exceptional as a student who is identified as gifted and is also has a documented disability, either through a Section 504 plan or an IEP. And that's one of the pieces that makes my supports unique, is that I do support general education students as well as special education students, as long as they're receiving some type of service. And we also have identified them as being gifted. If you want to go to our next slide. I'm not going to read this to you, I promise. You can go back on the recording. But this is an expanded definition. This was actually published last year in 2020 by some of our leading researchers in the field. And really, it just really fleshes out twice exceptionality and really identifies that most of our twice exceptional students are really multi-exceptional students. And they need different types of supports around their giftedness, around their disabilities, and also providing social emotional supports to support their well-being as they advance in the curriculum. Next. So, and you can actually click one more, Derek. Thanks. So this is kind of just a visual I like of our continuum of services, because we do start working with our students in their local schools. And again, because we support students with 504s, we do start in general education, and it goes all the way around through different types of support. I do get a lot of questions about our Wings Mentor program, and I will talk about that a little later in the presentation, but it is on hold this year, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but I'm hoping to do a big fancy relaunch, and we're allowed to have people back in the buildings. Can we get next slide? So this is about our local school programming. Get to the next slide. So the local school programming, this is really where we talk about how we meet the needs of most of our students in their home schools. This is where we talk about how we are meeting enrichment. So part of my job is to make sure that our 504 and IEP teams understand what does enrichment look like, what's available, what training is available, how do we modify it when it needs to be modified for our students, and just make sure that what I say to teams is a consistent message, and it's a consistent message between special education and curriculum, and making sure that everyone's on the same page. We leverage specialized positions. So what this really looks at is when I go into the school, I'm looking to see, what supports we have there. We have a reading specialist and a math content specialist maybe, or in secondary, we have our RITSEs, and, we might have special programs, and then also different specialists in central office, both in the curriculum office and in special education, and just giving them support so that when they go out to support the teams, it doesn't always have to come to me. So we have a lot of people who have good knowledge of Twice Exceptional now and are doing a lot to support in our schools. And then the other piece is that professional development and learning. And that is offered either teachers can take training with me when they want to. Over the summer is usually when I offer that. And then I also will work with school teams, sometimes to do some specialized instruction or to do other training, as the needs of their students change. So that can look like a variety of different things. And go next. And then next. So regional and countywide, we have one countywide program, and that is our elementary program, which is currently located at Barnsley Elementary. And in this program, we serve students in grades 3 through 5, and we serve them through a variety of different ways. We do self-contained enriched instruction. And so what that looks like is in our ELA classes, English Language Arts classes, we actually have our own curriculum, which was based off of the enriched literacy curriculum that AEI developed. But we have reimagined parts of it and done a lot to incorporate students, regular accommodations and regular supplementary aids and services that lots of our students have. And so that's incorporated into that curriculum. And that is taught through 3rd grade through 5th grade. We also have our math instruction, and I'll talk more about our math instruction in the breakout room. But essentially, that is actually now a partnership between our team and the math content specialists. And because a lot of our students are very highly gifted in math, and so starting in 3rd grade, we do some adapting and we do some modifications for them. And really work on that strength-based learning and the enrichment first model for our students. Our students are generally included for specials, lunch, and recess, so it's not a fully self-contained program, but we do offer, a variety of those pieces, and try and meet the needs of what our students are. If they need reading interventions, we provide those. If they need math interventions, we provide those, and it really tries to meet the needs of that group of students. One thing that sets our elementary students apart from some of our secondary programs is this is a very restrictive program with all of those self-contained options. So I like to describe it usually as these are gifted students who cannot access their gifted education in their home setting. And so that's why we have this setting. We have our regional services as well, which I'll talk about next, but because those are less restrictive, sometimes I'll describe them differently there, but that really is kind of the purpose of our elementary program. Derek, if you want to go to the next one. So our regional services take us grades 6 through 12. First, we have our middle school model where we have 3 regional middle schools. Each middle school has 1 or 2 case managers based on the number of students there. And they receive ongoing professional development from me both across the summer and throughout the school year. The case manager is the resource teacher for our students. Our students are only self-contained for resource in middle school, and they receive, that's where we do a lot of our social emotional instruction. That's where we do with needed social skills instruction, academic and executive functioning. For the rest of their classes, they are generally in an inclusion model. We cohort our students together, so they have a like group of peers and a like group of gifted peers that they travel with throughout the day. And then from there, we determine what courses they need and what type of support we have. And we have both dedicated paras and dedicated teachers, and our paras do receive additional instruction and professional learning around that twice exceptional profile. And Derek, if you want to go to the next one. Our high school model is very similar. One of the primary differences, of course, is that there's so many more options in high school. And so high school can be a balance of trying to meet our students' needs. Generally speaking, we try and support with co-teaching it through our English classes and then through our science classes. Math, our kids are kind of all over the place. So we're usually very lucky to have some really good math paras who know the math curriculum and support our students. We also do a lot of, we also do a lot of push-in support, and we also do a lot of PLC. And that's where our case managers go to different PLCs and work directly with the teachers to provide that support in the general education setting. So our next piece is the consult services. And with the consult services, Derek, if you want to go to one more. I like to make this clear that our consult services are school teams requesting specialized support for the adults in the school and really to build their capacity. Generally, we're making these requests when a team is new or hasn't worked with a student with this profile before. And so we're going out to give the adults professional learning and supportive services so that they understand in a better way how to support our students' needs. So if you want to go to the next one, thanks. And this is just an overview because I get asked a lot, like, what do my consults look like? So the first type I do are phone consults and file reviews. And generally this is teams saying, hey, could you look at this real quick and just, give me, some ideas. What are you thinking? Do we need more support from you? And it really is a great way for teams to know they're on the right track and know what they know, and then know also when they might need a little more support. I also will do team consulting where I go in and work with individual teams for both the 504s and the IEPs. I will do program consulting. So for example, with our regional magnet programs, I'll sometimes go in and talk to a full team of general educators and talk about what that twice exceptional profile looks like in a general education setting and provide supports as needed. And then the last piece is the consulting and discrete special education program. So that looks like usually I might go to a bridge program and talk to them about how they're able to enrich instruction in their self-contained setting. I spend a lot of time with our friends over in Asperger's, just kind of talking back and forth about how we infuse enrichment along with the skills that they need in the Asperger's program. And so that's a lot of support between these programs because we recognize that we have gifted students across all of our, really across all of our programs, across all of our schools. Do you want to go to the next one? So Wings, like I said, I would get back to it. So Wings is a great program. We should be entering our 33rd year. The pandemic put a whole little bit of a pause on that. We are planning to relaunch next fall. Wings is a mentor program for students who really just need an infusion. These are students who are not in special programs and not going to special programs, but these are for students who are staying in their home school, but really need that infusion of both executive functioning and confidence. And so our students work with a mentor for 8 to 10 weeks on a project of their choosing, and they work on building some of those social skills, some of the executive functioning skills, and just some confidence. It gives them their chance to be the expert in something. And at the end, we do an authentic presentation to other students in the program, to parents in the community, and our students have a chance to really shine. So hopefully that will be back when we are able to bring in our mentors. We have a lot of retirees and a lot of folks who come in from the public. And so clearly that's not something we're doing right now, but we do hope that we'll be able to launch that next fall. And with that, I made it with, I think, several minutes under, so we can have some more time in breakout rooms. This is my contact information, and generally speaking, if you look up GTLD or Twice Exceptional on the MCPS website, you will find me within a click or two. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So folks can see how blessed we are to have such wonderful professionals in Montgomery County Public Schools. So thank you all for presenting. They gave you a quick overview of those areas, and I know that some folks would like to connect with those professionals in the breakout rooms, so you can ask more questions, have a little dialogue. And I saw some questions about parent resources, and I know that folks can point you in some directions, either from our website or from us or from other sites, some other sites to access parental resources. So at this time, we want to move into the breakout rooms. We had 60 some folks here, and that's just a testament to your dedication to your children and to our school system. And we thank you for participating this evening. And then a second thank you to all of our presenters, to Sarah Jackson, to Brooke Levy, and to Anne-Marie Tagliaferri. We're very blessed to have you again, be such experts in your areas. And I will continue to collaborate with the co-chairs in terms of our future agenda topics. And co-chairs, if you could, take it away in terms of the collaboration time. I know you'll get feedback from folks around this evening, and you will get some more nuggets for us in terms of future topics. So we appreciate everybody's time this evening. So have a terrific evening, everybody. I hope that you got something out of this evening, and I do want to hear some feedback on the format, and we'll get a little smoother with the breakout room selection process. But thank you. Have a terrific evening, and have a great Thanksgiving. Oh, and don't forget, December 20th is a Monday, and that is our next meeting. So it is odd because it's a Monday, but that's where we will be hearing from Dr. Munifa McKnight, our acting superintendent. And have a wonderful Thanksgiving and safe travels to anybody who's going to be hitting the road or jumping on a plane. Okay, take care.